So last time we left off with the Houston Outlaws, and I left on a bit of a cliffhanger with London Spitfire, because I wanted to take a closer look at them, and this is what we're going to do here. Now, we may end up talking about the teams, it depends how long we end up babbling on about London, because we know that they're releasing pretty much their entire roster. They still have a few on their books right now, but we're expecting them to go, because they're having a whole ethos change with going to European and Western talent. They've now got Nuki in as their general manager, who is currently also general manager of the British Hurricane in EU contenders. So, yeah, we've seen the document released, the 2021 player contract status, and there's a lot of news in there. There's a lot of big things going on. But we also got more clarity on what teams we already know had made movements are doing. And the wording on these London Spitfire players is very odd. Very odd. So let's run through this right now. Although, free agent, mutual agreement. Babel, free agent, mutual agreement. Glister under existing contract. Shui, free agent by mutual agreement. Bernard under existing contract. Celestin, free agent by mutual agreement. Jihan, free agent by mutual agreement. JMac, free agent mutual agreement. Fuse under existing contract. Hailey, free agent mutual agreement. Krillin, free agent mutual agreement. Sanguinar under existing contract. So, what does this tell us? It may not seem much off of the face of it. Some people will look at this and say, well, London just got rid of all those players and some of them are still on, so they're under their contracts, blah blah blah. But it does indicate a very big misplay by Cloud9 and London Spitfire during the 2020 season, or should I say in the off-season after 2019 season. So they got rid of their original roster and they brought in this entirely new roster. It was an experiment. I think they generally thought, like, well, let's bring in a completely new roster, let's develop it, let's try and make a dynasty. It didn't work. Maybe they've cut it off too quickly, but that's, that's whatever Cloud9 and Spitfire and whatever are trying to do here. But this gives an indication of what exactly they did at the end of 2019, and I'm not sure whether it's good. You will see a lot of teams sign players on one-year contracts, but put in that contract a clause allowing them to extend that contract for a further year. So this is when we see things like the 2021 option exercise. They had a one-year contract, and now this is the team and the player agreeing to exercise the extra year's contract option that was in the original contract, allowing them to stay contracted to that team for another year. Some people are saying 2021 option declined. This means that they've been there for a year, and one of the parties has said, no, I don't want to take that +1 option, I don't want to take that extra year's contract, I'm going to leave. And so they've left. None of that is mentioned for London Spitfire. Now, what does this mean? Well, they can't be, like, not contracted, they have to be contracted, and what's very interesting is all the players that currently there are still under existing contracts. So what this does indicate is that the entire 12-man roster of London Spitfire was under multi-year contracts. Yes, multi-year contracts, including incredibly unknown talent like Celestin, Jihan, Sanguinar, Babel, although players that had not had too much in terms of previous proof of their quality. This indicates a massive gamble by Cloud9 and London Spitfire, banking on the fact that this squad, these 4 supports, 4 tanks, and 4 DPS players were going to become something great. And they wanted them tied down so that they didn't lose them. That's backfired. That is monumentally backfired on the London Spitfire. Now when we look at the likes of, well, everyone but Bernard, Glister, Fuse and Sanguinar, everyone who's left, it says free agent by mutual agreement. This means that their contracts have been terminated. They've not been released because they've become they're at the end of their contracts or whatever. No, they have been got out of their contracts. Now, this could have gone either way. Mutual agreement is vague. We don't have the exact circumstances or what went on in the back room, how these players have left the London Spitfire. But in some cases, and this goes not just for the Overwatch League, but other sports and esports and stuff like that, very often you have to be bought out of your contract. You will have to, the people who employ you will have to honour that contract till it's up. So in that case, you'd have to be paid your wages until your contract finishes. So I don't know whether this was a mutual agreement and they got perhaps paid to get out of their contract. I would hope not, because in that case, London Spitfire have flushed a massive amount of money down the toilet. Massive amount. Or it's a case of London going to them and saying, we don't want you on the team anymore. Them saying, okay, fine, we're going then. It's a difficult one. And it brings back, and it's something that Seagull highlighted the other day actually, that I was quite interested in, about a player association. Now, a lot of sports have this. Like, if I was to take football in the UK, soccer for you guys in NA, there's a player association. There is a football players association that looks after players, speaks up for the players. It's like a union, and it looks out for the players. There isn't that option in the Overwatch League. There isn't a body that looks after players, keeps an eye on players and stuff like that. It's generally down to the league to do that. Do we think the league organisers do a good job of that? I don't think so. We all know about Vancouver last season. So, have these players been literally... It's bad either way from London, when you think about it. These players had multi-year deals, and they've just been dropped, and their contracts haven't been honoured. That is not a great look. If they've been bought out of their contracts, it shows a monumental error from London Spitfire. Like, monumental error. They've just wasted money, time, and, well, faith. Faith is a big part of this. It really doesn't make any sense from Spitfire. And maybe this is something they will learn from going forward, but this should have been done as, well, we're going to give you a year contract, we'll see how you go, and then we'll put a +1 clause in it if we want to keep you on, and next season we've got that option. But it doesn't seem like that. It seems like every single London Spitfire player was under a multi-year deal, which we don't see much of. We don't see much of that across the whole league. If we take, say, okay, spoiler alert for San Francisco Shock. If we take San Francisco Shock, for example, right? Their entire team is not on multi-year deals. That is an absolute fact. Because I can tell you now that Striker, Tayo, Ans, they had 1+1 contracts. They did not have multi-year deals. There are very few players on San Francisco Shock that have multi-year deals. Jokobin and Smurf are two of them. And that's a team that is winning the league, that has won the league twice in a row. They are not on multi-year deals. There are actually very few multi-year deals in the Overwatch League. Like, even Profit and Gesture at Seoul Dynasty were not on multi-year deals. So, just to put this into perspective, you could probably say that there is an equal amount of players in the entire league that are on multi-year deals as there were on the London Spitfire alone. If this is what London have done, and it seems odd because London, no other team has this sort of look on this sheet, which is really, really weird. Really weird. But if London signed this entire roster on multi-year deals, expecting them to be something great, this is the biggest backfire in Overwatch League history, and I don't think will be matched. I mean, this did crash and burn for London. It wasn't a great season. They ended up bottom of APAC. They ended up in the bottom 5 in the league. They didn't win much money. They went out first in the playoffs. They were not good. And these players, some of them showed promise, like Bernard, like Glister, like Highly at times, like Sanguinar, but none of them were groundbreakers. Now, Glister, maybe you can argue for. He may be going to the Seoul Dynasty in the near future, but we still don't know what's going on with Bernard or Sanguinar or people like that, or Fuse, so we don't know what's going on with them. And then all these players that have left, they still don't have anywhere to go. But again, the free signing window isn't open yet, so that's a debate for another day. But this needed to be highlighted. It is very odd that London had these players on multi-year deals, and it would also be very interesting to know how they were, should we say, removed from their multi-year deals. Were they paid to be removed from their multi-year deals? Did London just dump them and end the contracts? Did London put a clause in the contract that they could end it at any time? In that case, it wasn't great for those players. And so this highlights an issue with player protection and player confidence in orgs, if this was the case. And I hate saying that, I'm a London Spitfire fan, but it doesn't look great for the Spitfire and their organisation, either which way you paint it. So, yeah, this is London Spitfire. Now, I mean, we're not going to talk about any other teams. It's been a 10-minute video. We're gonna end it there, and tomorrow we will move on to the Los Angeles Gladiators, Los Angeles Valiant, New York. There is a lot to talk about still in this player contract status roundup thing that's going on, because my goodness me, there are some shakeups. There are some big shakeups, and it's going to be incredibly interesting to see where some of these players end up in the off-season, whether they're staying, whether they're going. Some of them are going, some of them are staying, some of them could be ending up at different teams. It's really interesting. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.